Hello. Today I will highlight a few of the main ideas from Chapter 3, which is about voices. Before we begin our exploration of voices, we need to establish some communication vocabulary. A conversation is the process of two or more parties working interactively to create meanings through the exchange of verbal and nonverbal cues within a given context. We'll use conversation as a building block to study gender identity and gendered relationships. Conversation style is our tendency to communicate verbally or nonverbally in a particular way, such as being assertive, argumentative, or animated. This is created through the habitual use of particular verbal and nonverbal behaviors, such as the rate of speech, vocal inflection, vocal pitch, pronunciation of words, volume, amount of talk and silence, and how one tends to take turns in conversations, and even your topic preferences. Conversation style is important for us to consider because people tend to prefer and value the styles that they use, thus creating a less than objective means of assessing other people's communication. One of the things that can happen when you and another person don't share the same conversation style and also don't have respect for or understand the other person's communication style is ineffective conflict management. A demand and withdrawal conflict pattern happens when over time couples in distress tend to revert to stereotypical gender roles in which this pattern takes hold. Has this ever happened to you? So how did we get here? Some earlier theories attempted to provide an answer. It's important to note that these ideas have been contested, so bear that in mind as you watch this. They are only theories after all. Theories make an attempt at explaining why things are the way they are. Even though these theories have been contested, there's a reason we need to discuss them here, and I'll explain that after I go over these two theories with you. So the two theories are gendered play and gender-led styles. Gendered play is a theory which suggests that feminine and masculine language groups come from sex-segregated child's play. According to this theory, in feminine play, talk is the game or goal of the play. Girls learn a communication style for creating and maintaining close, equal relationships through this type of play. Also, according to gendered play theory, in masculine play, boys tend to play in larger, hierarchical groups in which the rules are predetermined. Competition and asserting oneself is the game or goal, and players learn a communication style of dominance. They use communication to proclaim opinions and identity. They use talk to achieve something, such as to solve problems or develop strategies, and they use communication to attract and maintain others' attention. Recall that earlier I gave the definition of conversation style. Deborah Tannen came up with the theory called gender-led styles in 1990 to explain how men and women communicate differently. According to Tannen, women use feminine conversation style that she calls rapport talk. This is talk that focuses on building relationships and connecting collaboratively with the other person and showing empathy. She also says that this rapport talk is indirect communication. Instead of being forthright about something, a person would say, "That's a problem, isn't it?" instead of just, "That's a problem." And in this type of feminine conversation style, storytelling is a collaborative effort. According to Deborah Tannen's gender-led styles, in the masculine conversational style, men use something called report talk, which is talk that focuses on instrumentality or task orientation, where they assert themselves and there is competitiveness. This type of conversation style is also direct, and storytelling is about status. So stories often are about stereotypical masculine topics, or they're told as a series of monologues. They are organized chronologically, they contain profanity, and they stress achievement or bragging rights. Profanity has been viewed traditionally as rough, manly speech and inappropriate for ladies. Why? Because the use of profanity contrasts with being sweet and polite. But is this really the case in real life? What about in your personal experience? This is one of the areas where I believe that Genderless Styles theory doesn't prove to always be true. So remember I said that these two theories have been contested. Actual research conducted to test the theories shows only small degrees of gender difference. Although researchers find little support for them, prevailing cultural expectations continue to influence how speakers are judged. In other words, society expects the Mars versus Venus dynamic, which is that men should talk one way and women should talk another way. Here are some examples of these societal expectations. Think about situations you've been in where women are not nurturing. This might usually happen when a woman is in a position of authority. What is often our perception of them? Okay, think about this. By contrast, how about situations where men are nurturing? Examples might include male nurses, male nannies, male kindergarten teachers, and so forth. Why aren't there more men in these fields? Put your critical thinking hat on to determine the answer to that. So what is your personal experience with these issues? Do you find that men are always competitive and direct in their communication? Are women always nurturing and indirect? Remember what I said in the video for Chapter 1, that focusing too much on difference can in turn create a stereotype threat. Here is a chart that summarizes the difference between the binary research approaches, like the ones we just discussed, and gender diversity approaches. I won't go through this chart in detail, but you can explore it on your own using the PDF of the slides that I've provided beneath this video, or you can simply press pause on this video. So, if we are going to evaluate the merit of someone's communication research, or if we're going to conduct it ourselves, we should check to ensure that it adheres to these criterion. First, it should use an intersectional approach. Second, it should focus on communication. Third, it should consider the context of the communication. And fourth, it should recognize the complex strategic nature of conversation and its power implications. Let's take a closer look at these criteria with a couple of examples. First, what happens if we ignore criterion 2, which is to focus on communication? Danish linguist Otto Jespersen imposed gender expectations on his research subjects in the 1920s. He studied reading abilities and argued that women processed information too quickly, and thus their speech is rapid, shallow, and not well thought out. In comparison, the men in his study were slower readers and not as able to report as much detail on what they had read. In evaluating his own results, Jespersen insisted that many highly distinguished men in his study are slow readers, and that this must mean slow readers are more intelligent and better speakers. Jespersen's conclusion, according to Chris Krameray, is that women chatter while men reflect and speak more analytically. And what happens if we ignore criterion 3, which is the context in which the communication occurs? So here's an example. We have probably all seen this photo at one point or another. It's a sailor kissing a woman after World War II is over. What's your first impression of what's happening here? Most of us conclude that this couple is in love and they are elated to finally be reunited with each other. But this was far from the truth. The woman in the photo, who is named Greta Zimmer Friedman, says, "It wasn't my choice to be kissed. The guy just came over and grabbed." This was revealed in a Library of Congress interview for the Veterans History Project in 2005. Of course, we could never have known this as outsiders. But let's look a little closer at the photo. People's body language and facial expressions are considered communication, which we call nonverbal communication. So take a look at the woman's body language. Look at her hand in particular. It's clenched into a fist. And is she wrapping her arms around him in return, like we would assume if they were happy to see each other? Now let's look at the sailor's body language. He has a really firm grasp around the physically smaller woman, such that she could not escape if she tried. Knowing all of these things, suddenly our impression and our understanding of what's happening in this photo is drastically different. One approach to research that ticks all of the boxes for meeting the criterion of effective research on gender and communication is something called ethnography. It's not the only approach, but it is noticeably different from traditional and more clinical research. Ethnography involves observation over time, getting to know the speakers, interpreting conversations informed by their insider perspectives, and studying conversation in a rich context. All of these things better ensure we are studying the dynamic ways that intersectional identities are created in conversation. That's it for today. If you have general questions about this week's assignments or the readings or this class, please let me know through our Q&A discussion forum or email me directly. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all a great week.